Hello, I'm Philip Stoten. I'm here at Apex 2018. I'm joined by three people who have just done a buzz session on E-Textiles. So want to explore the topic with them. We've got Connie here from Fab Design, we've got Stephanie from Apex Mills, and Chris, who was chairing the session from IPC. Chris, just start by telling me how these buzz sessions work and the kind of audience you get and participation you get.
Sure. Well, the buzz sessions is really just similar to a technical session with IPC, except we don't have the rigorous requirements for call for papers, abstracts, or things like that. So they can be a little more flexible as far as the format. So with the sessions that I have done this year and the past year was trying to focus on an area of technology which is a little bit on the edge of traditional circuit board manufacture and assembly. So I've done flex hybrid electronics. I did a 3D printing this year, and also because we've been doing a lot of work with E-Textiles over the last year with standards development, we decided to do the buzz session this year on E-Textiles.
Okay, excellent. And Stephanie, just tell me your involvement in E-Textiles and what you were talking to the audience about today.
So I'm a textile engineer for about 30 years, and I've watched the evolution of yarns and fabrics come together for apparel and industrial applications. And the company that I work for at Apex Mills is looking to expand their operations of industrial materials, where application-driven design, organization, and new applications in e-textiles are coming daily. And so my role is to help understand and map a roadmap plan for Apex Mills, but also to listen to the electronics community and the makers that are out there and the brands that are looking for new materials.
Okay.
And in today's buzz session, it was not unexpected. There was one other textile person in the room. And so largely we spoke to the electronics community about what we feel the definition of e-textiles are and in some use cases.
Okay. And Connie, tell me a bit about your position in the industry and what you heard today.
I'm also a textile engineer, and we're kind of the sandbox for different companies to kind of test out different ideas, and we actually make things that are repeatable and scalable into mass production. And so what I was talking to people about today are the new developments that we're seeing in e-textiles, the different ways that conductivity and active and passive information and energy is passing through materials, and the different ways and structures of fabrics and how they are flexible. And they're a lot different than what they're usually used to as far as electronics and the whole smart industry.
Yeah, and certainly in the way they're manufactured and the way they're processed, that's very different. Start with the definition, as you put it, Stephanie. How did you choose to define e-textiles?
Sure. Well, we define e-textiles as a subcategory of smart textiles, which is the overarching umbrella. And for us, an e-textile is a textile that embodies a communication outlet, whether it's a sensing mechanism or through detection. We want to see that the electrical component of that product is interlaced into the fabric. And I think my co-chair said it better even today, was that it's permanently adhered. It's part of the textile.
Yeah, so it's where the fabric industry and the electronics industry kind of cross over. Connie, when you look at the audience there, if they weren't people from the textile industry, are they people from the electronics industry that are wondering where the opportunity is for them, where they can fit into the ecosystem?
Yes, exactly. They're looking at what they can actually do to contribute to this, whether it's connectors or hardware or different ways to put software into the textiles. And I tried to explain to them, this is new for a lot of people, and we made a joke that, in the 80s we had the big bag phones and everybody saw the big cell phones. Now we have these fantastic things that have cameras and everything. This is where we are. We're at basically the birth of could be something absolutely fantastic. And the way technology is changing so quickly, it's not going to be 30 years. It could be 5, it could be 10, and we can have some amazing products. So figuring out who and where we can actually put different parts into and components into the smart textiles, I think is really key for them to understand where they can possibly fit.
Yeah. And Chris, from your point of view, chairing this kind of committee, you're looking for some debate, but are you looking to take the conversation on after these things? Are you looking to form committees, look at what's needed?
Yeah, so that really, this is where the committee formation came before this. About a year ago, the Printed Electronics Committee tasked me as the staff liaison with trying to see what sort of activity there was for standards for e-textiles, which I did, went out and did some hunting around, and found there really wasn't a lot. So we put a few lines in the water to see what kind of interest we would get from people, and we got quite a bit. And in fact, it was actually a year ago at Apex that we held an interest meeting. We brought together people from the e-textiles community, brought together people from the IPC side, and said, we're interested in doing standards. What's the path forward? What would we like to do? And we were tasked with forming a committee. And we have a standard that was started in April of this past year. We have a first draft. The committee is actually going to meet about tomorrow, and we have a path forward. We have actually laid out a structure for what could be up to, say, 70 to 80 e-textile standards under the IPC standards landscape. So it's something that we're taking very seriously. We're not trying to get our head in front of our skis on this, but we just want to be prepared and to show this industry that if they have a topic, if they have an area of technology that needs something to be covered by a standard, and as long as another group is not doing it, that IPC could be the home for that.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense, doesn't it, to use the IPC to kind of mobilize all these people and bring them together. One of the elements that I see in this, Stephanie, is where the textile industry and the electronics industry and their supply chains and their manufacturing methods have to come together. We've seen some of that happening with the wearable sector, and it's clearly an area that the EMS industry has been chasing and seen as an opportunity. How do you see that? How do you see that developing as we go forward? Is it people in the apparel supply chain getting into electronics, or is it people in the electronics industry getting into apparel? How do those two worlds meld together?
Well, I feel like it is the electronics industry encroaching into the textile industry more so than the opposite. The textile industry obviously sees this as a great opportunity to use our form as a vehicle or a substrate for the future of electronics. But having mostly electronic people in the room, I think at this event still you're going to find 5 textile people here. But there's such an increasing demand to it that the supply chain is definitely going to make a big impact. So in the case of apparel, I believe Connie will agree with me that the supply chain, the apparel supply chain is going to the electronic supply chain to help them figure it out. Often this is happening, though, where the garment is made. So in Israel, Sri Lanka, South America, these things are happening through partners like Flex and Jabil.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's a collision of different geographies as well as different styles, but what I think the electronic manufacturing industry has realized is it's good at making stuff, and it has good supply chain control. It's used to working on very small margins, which is interesting. Connie, Stephanie mentioned the word encroachment. Is that a welcome encroachment? Are the industries keen to collaborate and their associations, or is there a little bit, hey, this is our territory?
I think if there's money in anything, people will follow. And I think that apparel has been done to death, and if we can add something wonderful that people actually want, a product that actually stands on itself, whether it has electronics in it or not, I think will be very, very welcomed.
Those e-textiles, those fabrics that do conduct, that do sense, are really a gateway to some really exciting new applications.
We've seen a few things in automotive that are coming, and we've seen things in maybe security as well as health and wellness. A lot of them are using not only maybe some interesting alloys that we're putting into textiles as well. So I think that it's going to be a very interesting next 2 years.
Yeah, it's exciting times. Chris, it's great to see the IPC involved in this and as a catalyst for this. And we've seen some great examples this week with CFX and other things of how IPC can bring people together. That's a really important part of your job now.
That really is, and it's a fun aspect of it as well. I did not even realize that I would have a committee like this added on to all the other committees that I work with. But this has been a very fun group to work with because they knew what they wanted. They knew that there was a need for standards, and they have such a passion and an understanding for a technology, which I'll be honest with you is still way over my head. But we come together and they meet on conference calls and they meet face to face to really to help to push us to push forward the standard with an understanding that they need these standards because they need something that they can show to their customers and to their supply chains to help everybody have an understanding as to how e-textiles work, the testing that is necessary or maybe is not, and to be in, it's something that they can use to specify product, but also to educate their industry and to help to grow it. So it's exciting to be a part of that, it really is.
Yeah, and it's really important. And we get excited about the applications and all the cool stuff we can do with it, but we need kind of the standards and the engineering rigor and all that in the background. Chris, Stephanie, Connie, thank you so much for your time. Absolute pleasure to talk to you and enjoy the rest of the show.
Thanks.
Thanks so much.